So I'm back, and I had to be on today because we are witnessing one of the most important stories in my entire lifetime of 50 years in journalism, the Minnesota Rebellion. And I hope you will read the column, not only for my situation, but because I'm able to spell out, and you can reread it and file it and keep it, okay? But I'm going to go over everything tonight, and I'm going to tell you the truth, and I don't care if you don't like the truth or you don't want to hear the truth. You don't want to hear it, blast me off right now, because I'm coming right at you. This is a disgrace, what is happening there in Minnesota. There is no excuse for this, and there are remedies to this situation. And here we go. You got an open rebellion. You got the governor of a state, Walz, just basically saying, we're not only not obeying immigration law, stated law passed by Congress, but we're not going to protect the federal agents assigned to enforce the federal law. So Minnesota state police and local police are not even going to protect you. Has there ever been a more disgraceful governor? Maybe down south, George Wallace. That's Walz. He writes an article in a Wall Street Journal today saying, oh, no, you got it all wrong. You got it all wrong. No. We cooperate with ICE. That is a lie. That governor has ordered his police to stand down and not protect federal agents. If Minnesota authorities stood shoulder to shoulder with federal authorities, no one would be dead. And the legitimate protests, and they are legitimate. You don't like ICE? Okay. But those protesters would be protected. But no, Walz won't do it. Now, I'm not even going to bother with Frey, the mayor of Minneapolis. I'll get to him tomorrow. He's a punk. That's what he is. And I'll prove it to you tomorrow. But I'm not even going to bother with that tonight. But if I'm sitting in Washington, if I'm the president or if I'm the head of the Justice Department, I'm looking at Walz. Why? Listen to this. There is a law against rebellion in the United States. It is 18 U.S.C. Code 2383. It is a federal crime to incite, assist, or engage in any rebellion or insurrection against the authority of the United States or its laws. Here's the actual wording, quote, whoever incites, sets on foot, assists, or engages in any rebellion or insurrection against the authority of the United States or laws thereof, or gives aid or comfort thereto, should be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 10 years or both, and shall be incapable of holding office under the United States. That is the law. So where are you, Kash Patel? Where are you, the FBI chief? Where? What's your plan? Nobody's going to believe ICE investigating ICE or Border Patrol investigating Border Patrol. They won't even believe the FBI. I know that. But this is a law on the books. What are you doing about it? You know what he's doing? He's waiting to be told what to do. That's what Patel's doing. You got to get it in gear, man. This has got to get under control now. Now, today, President Trump and Walz spoke. Excellent. Détente has to be reached. Temperatures down, violence stopped. But the investigation into what is happening in Minnesota has to be transparent. What Patel should do is get his best investigators into a squad, bring them in, and look and examine the political people in Minnesota and the law enforcement people. Okay? Enough. You can't do the job, cash out. Get somebody who can. Okay. This all began because of President Biden. He's the source of the problem. Probably the most corrupt president as far as enforcing federal law in our history. Okay? Biden let everybody in. We're all paying the consequences. 2 people with their lives. Starts with Biden. But then the Democratic Party, the entire party, embraced the Biden madness. And that led to Walz and Frey and Minnesota. Big F-you, federal government. Big F-you, President Trump. No. We elected President Trump. He won. He's the president. He's the leader. You hate him? Fine. You don't defy federal law and get people killed. Now, the Democratic Party has got to stop. Okay? You got to stop playing games here. You got to unite with President Trump and the Republican Party and stamp it down now. This is a crisis. Not only a crisis of violence, but a constitutional crisis. You can't have anarchy and insurrection. Do we all understand that? Okay. Now, at this point, we have to start condemning people for their activities. Not, well, I understand. You've got a media that stokes the violence, wants the violence, in my opinion. Roll the tape.
So this cycle of fear and lack of experience leading to this 37-year-old ICU nurse who was clearly trying to help someone else. You can clearly see it in the video, getting, as many would argue, murdered by ICE.
And frankly, you know, I don't know what you're investigating if you're not investigating the straight up murder. The straight up murder. This is the second one.
Well, thanks for due process. Right? Disney, I don't hold her responsible. You know what you got out there. You know what you're putting on the air every day, Disney. Iger, Burbank, California, theme parks. You know what you're doing, and you do it anyway. I don't blame her. That's who she is. Same thing with MS or whatever the hell it is. But the worst is Senator Mark Kelly of Arizona. I used to respect Kelly. Listen to this.
Hey, everybody, it's Senator Mark Kelly. Hey, I watched that video of Minneapolis today. Probably watched it a dozen times. Pretty obvious that this man was shot dead in the street for no reason. I want to encourage people to believe what they see. Don't let anybody, don't let this White House tell you it is something else.
Loathsome. Loathsome. Denial of due process, okay? Just like the other, okay? And this guy knows better. So, I don't know what you do. You people in Arizona, I mean, you're hearing this. Does this do any good at all? No. Whew. He's inciting it. Now, the man himself who was killed, a nurse, 37 years old, we traced him, far left guy, doesn't have any history of criminality. Like the woman who was killed, the first one, the man shows up in an area where ICE agents are conducting raids, arrests, okay? He's armed. Got a gun on him. He gets in a physical confrontation with federal agents. He's not some kind of innocent little Bo Peep, this guy. And I hate to say this, he's dead. And he should be mourned. Nobody should be happy about that. And his family should be respected. But this guy brought upon his own demise. That's what he did. Think about it. Step back for a second. You know there's violence. One woman already dead. You show up with a concealed weapon, even if you have a permit to carry, what the deuce difference does that make? You know that you're injecting yourself into a situation that is volatile. Now, the Border Patrol agent who shot him may have made a mistake, may have even committed a crime. That's due process. But the victim walked into his own death. That's the truth. And I hate to say that. You're also hearing about ICE not having the authority to detain migrants. That is a lie. Here is the statute once again. And this comes from an article in the Wall Street Journal. Quote, illegal aliens, however, do not have the same rights as Americans. Under federal immigration law, officers may issue administrative warrant, which means that the probable cause finding is made by an executive branch officer rather than a judicial officer or a judge. This is consistent with broad judicial recognition that illegal aliens are not entitled to the same Fourth Amendment protections a U.S. citizen is. It is also consistent with the Supreme Court's admonition that the touchstone of the Fourth Amendment is whether the search or seizure is reasonable, not whether it is supported by a judicial warrant. In Abel versus U.S. 1960, the justices of the Supreme Court recognized that there is overwhelming historical legislative recognition of the propriety of administrative arrests for deportable aliens. All right, that is the law. ICE is not disobeying the law. And how many times have you heard that? That's a 1960 ruling. It has not been updated, not been re-litigated. So now you have elected officials who are saying, oh, what ICE is doing is illegal. It's a lie. Finally, here's the most important part of this story. The anti-American cadres who want to overthrow this government, and they're out there now, are using Minnesota, okay? This group is led by a man named Neville Roy Singham. He is a communist living in Shanghai, China. Is an organization called Breakthrough News, registered in the USA. Again, the main man's name is Neville Roy Singham. He's behind pushing all of these confrontations. He is using these organizations in the United States to do it. The Party for Socialism and Liberation, Democratic Socialists of America, Freedom Road Socialist Organization, Minnesota Immigrant Rights Action Committee, Black Lives Matter chapters. They are all trying to overthrow the government of the United States. Have you heard that anywhere? Anybody report that to you? Absolute fact. They have millions of dollars. They are pumping all kinds of stuff into Minneapolis to agitate it. This is not organic, these protests. Nobody understands what's really going on. Media will not report it. I will. And that's the memo. I got to tell you how angry I am. I'm going to ask President Trump to watch that memo himself today. I think he will. He watches us pretty much every day. But he's got to stop. Now, Kristi Noem, Homeland Security Director. You got to restrain yourself, madam. You can't be doing what you're doing. You're inciting as well. Wait till the facts come out. So Ms. Noem says that 10,000 criminal illegal aliens have been arrested or detained in Minneapolis. I believe that is an exaggeration. Federal government has to get its facts straight. Has to. Because the more credibility the feds lose, the more of this kind of violence you're going to see. All right, we got a good guest. I've known him for a long time. His name is Art Del Cueto. Comes to us from Tucson, Arizona this evening. Unbelievable resume. He used to be the former spokesperson for the National Border Patrol Council. He's now the security advisor for the Federation for Immigrant Reform. And as I said, he's in Tucson. All right. Americans don't know the difference between Border Patrol, which shot the man on Saturday, and ICE. What's the difference?
You know, honestly, there's people in the media that don't know the difference. That they continue to put pictures out of Border Patrol when ICE does something, or pictures of ICE when Border Patrol does something. Border Patrol patrols in between the ports of entry. That's what they've done for many, many years. But they also get detailed to other agencies. I myself has been detailed to other agencies all the time when they need assistance, especially within DHS. So you'll have agents that, they'll be detailed out to the OFO, which is the individuals that work at the ports of entry themselves. That's customs and the immigration side. And then you have ICE that deal with the interior. A lot of what they've worked throughout the years is working transport and working in the prisons where these individuals are detained before they're deported. So you're dealing with a bunch of different factors. But because of the mess that the last administration created, you're having to have an all-hands-on-deck approach. And a lot of it is moving Border Patrol agents out there in these areas and these urban areas as well, and the cities as to be able to assist ICE with their operations.
All right. So they're basically, they have the power, as we just said, legally, to execute warrants by their superiors, but they're assisting ICE. So they're working together to find criminal aliens and other people who shouldn't be here. That's what they're doing. Okay. All right. That's very important for understanding. Now, you yourself, Art, because you were on a factory, we go back. You respond to scores of violent conflicts. All right. When a videotape is taken with the woman in the car, now with the man with the cell phone who had a gun inside, all right, his jacket, fully loaded. All right. Now we have, well, let's make the verdict on television.
Right. And that's the problem, Bill. Look, there's been so many people that have talked about these different incidents. I responded to well over 90% of all the use of force incidents in Tucson sector. I've responded to shootings, to, numerous amounts of use of force. I was next to agents numerous times when they would get indicted and they were tried for crimes within the state, even though they were cleared by the federal government. That's very important. They were cleared of any wrongdoing, but the state came after them anyways. And I sat in those courtrooms and listened to all the back and forth from the attorneys. I assisted some of the attorneys that were defending some of the agents. And that's going to be the biggest problem. At this point, where do you find a jury that hasn't heard about these cases?
No, but
and that's just one point.
I'm not worried about that. What I'm worried about is clearly in Minnesota, ICE and the Border Patrol have not de-escalated it.
Absolutely.
But
it's because they haven't had any assistance, Bill. You have to have assistance from the local authorities.
We know who the bad guys are.
Right.
But when you're on the ground and you have this volatile situation and you draw your weapon, there has got to be some kind of guidance. You just can't be shooting all over the place, Art.
No, and I agree with you. Look, I worked that field many times. I was out in the desert. When I was tracking drug smugglers, my gun was never holstered. My gun was always outside. Now, obviously, you have to have trigger discipline and you keep your fingers off the trigger and everything like that. But there's things that can come out and spook you. Luckily, I wasn't put in that situation where I pulled the trigger. But we need to go through the investigation.
No, absolutely.
Let's wait and see what the investigation draws out.
But there also
and right
needs
now,
to be,
they're not doing that.
But there's a defiance on the part of Homeland Security. NOM, and they're acting defiant, which is polarizing the whole country. Now, you got to stick up for your guys. You have to, because you're not going to have any guys. But
Well,
you
I'm
have
retired
to.
now. I'm retired now, Bill. So I'm just telling you the way it is.
No, I
from
know. But that's why I'm calling for the FBI to have a special elite unit to go in and look at this. And again, I know Walls and Fry, no matter what the FBI said, not going to believe them.
Well,
But I
these
want it
types
as
of
an American
shootings-
citizen.
Look, on these types of shootings, the people that will take over the investigation is the Office of Inspector General. So the Office of Inspector General are the ones that are going to get involved, and they're the ones that are going to see the shooting
okay,
itself.
but the actual facts on the ground have to be accumulated before the Inspector General can
And how do you
study them.
accumulate those facts when you got rioters that completely disturbed
Undercover
the scene?
FBI people. You got to send
Yeah,
in
but what I'm
elite
saying is-
FBI investigators
I
to
agree,
investigate.
but the scene where it occurred has already been damaged because people were all over the place. So that scene was already damaged.
They do the
should have
best they can do.
deployed- Right. So they should have deployed state and local authorities immediately. Once I saw these individuals that were protesting and they started moving the trash cans and blocking the streets, I knew right away it's lost. So before I went to the Border Patrol, I worked for the state prison for a long time. And when I was in the state prison, they teach you even more tactics on how to be able to handle these types of crowds and this hostility and riot situations. And that's part of the problem. If they would have had more local authorities on scene, they would have been able to avoid some of this. Now we can Monday morning quarterback it now.
Look,
but I think
that's
we need
the
to learn
primary
moving forward.
The primary point I made was Walls, by telling his authorities not to cooperate with ICE, not to protect ICE, not even to protect them, that's almost insurrection. And the
Correct.
FBI should be looking at him.
And you know
Okay.
what, Bill? From talking to agents, you know where else it happened? It happened in Los Angeles when they were out there, and it happened in Chicago when they were out there.
Absolutely.
Just nobody wanted to talk about it.
And it's being fueled by this far left agitators. You imagine a guy in Shanghai, China, orchestrating
Right.
this whole thing?
And it's going to happen in Arizona next when they start doing any type of tactical enforcement here, because you heard Senator Kelly already pushing those buttons because they want that to
Yeah,
happen.
what's up with him? You know him. What's up with this guy?
Last time I talked to him, he refused to shake my hand several years ago. But look, that's part of the problem that we're seeing across the country is that we have these individuals in leadership positions that are perfectly comfortable doing their press conferences and telling people, do not obey, that we will not comply. I have videos on my social media where I have leadership from Tucson, the city of Tucson, where they've said, we will not obey. We will not comply. Those
All
were
right.
their specific
And I want to
words.
give you a plug for that. It's 5 Strands with Art Del Cueto. That's DelCueto on YouTube. People can see those.
I have
All
it on
right.
Instagram. I have it everywhere. They need
All
to
right.
see that.
All right. I may have to come out there and get one of your hats. And I appreciate it. I just hope, well,
Bill,
I'm
let
gonna-
me just add.
yeah.
Look, I know Kristi Noem personally, and she has done what many others have not done. And we'll hear back and forth on it. And I think we need to start looking into who are these leaks within the agency that have badmouthed her. We need to start looking and seeing, who has been giving her information that perhaps not be correct in order to put her in a spot to look bad. She has accomplished, along with President Trump, to secure the border like nobody else has
That is
secured it.
absolutely true.
And they all
and
need to get on
everything
board
backs
with
it up.
this instead of pointing the finger. But I was an agent for many years, and I can tell you, when egos get in the way, there may be some people still within the agency that instead of agreeing that she's doing a good job, they may be a little upset because they're not the ones that are in that position of leadership, or maybe when they were in those positions, they weren't able to get the job done. Kristi Noem, President Trump, and Tom Homan, and Chief Mike Banks is doing a fantastic job.
All right. Thanks very much. We appreciate it. We'll talk again soon, I hope. And it's clear that no matter what the facts are, that Minnesota isn't going to change. Listen to this woman. Her name is State Representative Kayla Berg. Roll that.
It's like a tale of two press conferences. The one with our Minneapolis leaders and our congressional delegation full of humanity, calling for peaceful protest, keeping each other safe. The other asking us to disbelieve what we have seen with our own eyes. Enough is enough. Minnesota can investigate what happens in Minnesota. ICE needs to leave now, and our communities need to become safe once again.
Your communities aren't safe. They burn the police orders down on George Floyd. You're a moron. You're irresponsible. You should quit today. Minnesota can investigate what happens in Minnesota. Did you miss the $1 billion grift, madam? Ooh, wow, boy. Now, this is affecting everyone. Why? Because they had a deal, a government spending deal to extend, and now the Democrats are backing out of it because of the shooting in Minnesota. So it was a $1.2 trillion government funding package, passed the House, 220-207. All right, it was on the way to the Senate, allocating $65 billion to the Department of Homeland Security. Now, Schumer and the Democrats go, oh, no, we don't want to do that. We shut the government down again. See? We all suffer.